this course by talking about the process you're going to have to undertake in order to be allowed to actually sit for the exam. Of course, this process begins by completing an application. For PMI, there are two ways that you can submit this application. One, you can download the PDF called the Experience Verification Form found in the Certificate Handbook on PMI's website at pmi.org, going to the certification section and looking for the ACP Handbook, and then completing the PDF file and mailing that into PMI. Now, that's going to be the slowest way possible for you to complete the application. It's still a very good idea, though, for you to download the app just so that you can have all the information contained in the handbook. The faster way to apply to sit for the ACP exam is to do it online. This process begins by going to the PMI website and creating a login for yourself. Once you do that, you'll be able to go ahead and complete that application and submit the information. Once you create that initial login, the key there is to remember you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You'll be able to come back time and time again and log in, and the website will maintain your information for 90 days. So that gives you 3 months basically to complete that application process and hit that submit button. Once you've completed that submission, PMI will take approximately 10 days to review your application and then submit to you an acceptance or audit or rejection notification, depending on what your status is. If you've provided PMI an email address, your notification will come via email. If you haven't, of course, you'll get it via the old-fashioned snail mail in the postal service. I highly recommend, therefore, you provide an email address. When you get that notification, it will include an ID number that allows you to then go to the testing website, which is administered by another organization, and put your information in and take the exam. However, before you can do that, you must pay for your exam and complete that applicant payment process. You won't be able to schedule the exam until you've completed that certification payment. We'll talk about the costs of doing that in just a few minutes. Once you complete, though, that application payment process, you're able to go on to the website, which we'll address in a few moments. But you're given 1 full year from the date of that acceptance letter in order to pass the exam. Additionally, you can take that exam 3 different times before PMI requires you to sit out and wait a year before you retake it, under the guise of, if you haven't passed it in 3 times, the odds of you suddenly magically being able to pass the test are pretty slim. So they want you to spend some more time, get some more experience, and then you'll be hopefully more successful. As I mentioned earlier, though, there is a chance you might get stuck with the audit process. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you've done anything wrong. PMI looks to have somewhere between 12 and 16% of all their applicants for each individual certification go through the audit process. Now, the first way they pick the people who will be audited is people who, in some way, shape, or form, don't provide complete, valid information in some way. And the hours don't line up. It doesn't seem like the projects make sense. There could be a lot of different reasons for it, or just simply they don't understand the terminology that you're using. However, if they're not getting enough people that way, which is more often than not the case, it's based on random selection. So every so often, an applicant just gets pulled, and of course, they're then going to have to deal with the audit process. Should you be audited, you are given 90 days to provide proof of all the information that you gave on your application. That means you must in some way, shape, or form prove your college degree or high school diploma, whichever it was that you used. In addition, you must prove those contact hours. Be very, very careful. A lot of people think that they can use the course certificate that almost every course provides at its completion. That's insufficient. And this is a key reason why using a registered education provider is to your advantage. You see, PMI expects that education provider to write a letter confirming that you have completed the course appropriately and the date when you took that course. They're then going to compare those dates that you claimed on your application with when you actually did it according to the letter and go from there. With your degrees, it's not enough to photocopy your piece of paper that you have from the university or college or high school, whatever it may be. You actually need to get a letter from the registrar's office. Typically, they have some kind of embossed stamp that proves that it's authentic. Should you get audited and need to prove that you took this course, contact Looking Glass Development at information@lookingglassdev.com. The email address provided at the beginning, and we'll show it again at the end of the course so that you can get that appropriate letter. At the end of it, once you are completely certified, you then go into the renewal pool. You're then interested in something called a PDU, or a professional development unit, and that's just a continuing education credit. It highlights the fact that you're continuing to learn about your particular profession. Now, PMI typically runs off a 3-year renewal cycle, which means over that 3-year period from the date of your certification, which is the date you pass your exam, you must go out there and get 30 PDUs. You may not count any class or article, book that you wrote, lecture that you give, etc., prior to the passing of the exam. And that's very important. Well, that's all there is in terms of the process. But now let's talk a little bit about what the qualifications are for the ACP. To begin with, you have an education requirement. This qualification for the ACP is different than some of PMI's other certifications. For the ACP, you must have a high school diploma, associate's degree, or equivalent as a minimum.